Money finances lifestyle, and the more money you have, the better quality lifestyle you can enjoy. It's time to dethrone the god of money while amassing an abundance for the kingdom of God. Profitable stewardship creates debt-free wealth. So, what is profitable stewardship? Being a faithful manager of what God has put under your control and bringing it to a profitable outcome. Money should never be the goal, but it is a fantastic outcome of doing the right things and doing the right things right. Join us as we explore the space of Christians and money.
Hey guys, it's been a while since I've done a live, and on top of it, I need to be more consistent. It's really been challenging. Some of you may know I'm pursuing my doctorate. It's in strategic leadership, and that plus work plus, you know, just life and being a wife and mom is challenging. But I'm going to try and be more consistent with creating videos, at least one video a week on a Friday. So I'm going to look at it as Financial Friday. This particular video I'm inspired to do because of my homework assignment. But I do like to have this conversation, and I thought this particular assignment was, you know, a good one to have a video on. The assignment was to do, to integrate our faith into our life, into our work. And that's kind of how I live my life. But they gave us a specific scenario, which I thought was very current, very relevant. And I'll read the scenario. I'll leave out names in case this, I don't think the scenario is real, but I'll leave out names. So this gentleman is an employee of a bank, and he started there as a teller and was quickly promoted to customer service team leader because he had a great care for the bank customers. At about the 6-year mark, he got transferred to a bigger location doing the same job. 4 years after that transfer, so he's now at the bank 10 years, okay? So 4 years after that transfer to the bigger bank, an assistant branch manager position opens up, and he expresses an interest in that particular position. But the manager of the bank, who had of course known him quite well, thought he wasn't quite ready for the role, but promised to keep him in mind. Well, they did a search. They interviewed many people. They didn't find anybody more qualified than him, so they gave him the job. During the conversation where they're saying, okay, you got the job, however, the manager points out, his supervisor, which is the bank manager, points out some clear expectations for him to rise to the level and give the kind of results that they expect and are looking for in this new role. So some of the things they asked of him to improve was his attention to detail, his need to coach and mentor those he would be supervising, to treat the employees as favorably as he treated the customers. He did treat the customers well. Now, this gentleman started the job, progressed for a while, and about 6 months after the promotion, the manager started to get some complaints about him. And at first they were minor, missing a deadline or two, transposing numbers on a report, but shortly after the complaints kept getting worse. In one particular time, this gentleman spoke harshly to an employee that he supervises in front of the customers, the bank customers. So the bank manager now has a concern, you know, mentions his concern, and during that chat, he denies some of the complaints, but he accepts that some had happened, but he downplayed the significance. So the bank manager insisted that he needs to focus on overcoming the same thing she brought to his awareness from the beginning, and he had to work to restore trust with those he supervises, his subordinates. So he took his bank manager's admonition seriously, and his attitude and actions improved for the next 6 months. They improved for the next 6 months. But the complaints came back again along the same lines. And this time the bank manager was forced to write a formal warning that went in to start the disciplinary process. Just like before, that cycle of improvement and decline kept happening. And eventually on their next conversation, which was more than a year, he was now terminated due to the recurring issues with his behavior and his performance. So now here's the homework, having heard the case, okay? I'm telling you, I have full appreciation and acknowledgement for those who have walked this course before. This is not easy, guys. Okay, so my job for the homework assignment, but I'm sharing it because I feel like this was a very relevant case, okay? Very relevant to how we as Christians need to show up. We should not be Christians just on a Sunday and on Monday morning it's back to life as usual. Really, our faith should be with us, you know, it's our identity, it's who we are. It should therefore be how we operate. So the question is, we're to consider this case from the perspective of God's character. Do I think the situation was handled properly? Was the situation handled correctly? Or was it done without considering God's character? Is there anything that I would have done differently? And what is the evidence from the Bible and literature? No, obviously this is a whole assignment. I've got to do research. I've got to bring in the research component to that to give verification, validation to any point I make. But this is something that happens all the time in life, right? We as Christians, we're in the workplace, we have bosses, or we ourselves are the boss, and we have to deal with our employees, and we should be showing up as a Christians we say we are in all situations. In all situations, the character of God, if we are Christians as we say we are, should show up in the way we think, in the way we act, in our relationships, and that kind of thing. So this is just going to be a quick overview. I'm going to invite you to throw your thoughts in the comments. Hey, it may even make it in my paper, but I do still have to make that voice my own, and I have to find research to back up whatever I suggest or say. But I am inviting you to contribute to this conversation, especially, and if you do contribute in the chat below, please say if you are speaking from an employee's perspective or if you're speaking from a supervisor of that employee's perspective. So we have the bank manager and we have the new assistant manager, and it's the assistant manager that has had all these issues that have been brought to the attention. So here's what there's two verses that I want to use that I think will really tie up a lot of my position. I may find other verses, but Colossians 3 verses 23 to 25. I'm going to read two renditions of it, okay? So the first rendition I'm going to give you is, I hope I printed it off. Okay, so I can only give you, yes, I do have two renditions. So the first one is from the ESV, the English Standard Version. And it reads, says Colossians 3, 23 to 25. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. For the wrongdoer will be paid back for the wrong he has done, and there is no partiality. There is another translation known as the Message. I don't tend to read the Message, but it's like an expanded current translation with expansions to make some of the words more current and understandable. So the Message says, servants, do what you're told by your earthly masters. It's Colossians 3, 23, 25 from a different version. This version is the Message. It reads quite differently, I think. Servants, do what you're told by your earthly masters, and don't just do the minimum that will get you by. Do your best. Work from the heart for your real master, for God. confident that you'll get paid in full when you come into your inheritance. Keep in mind always that the ultimate master you're serving is Christ. The sullen servant who does shoddy work will be held responsible. Being a follower of Jesus doesn't cover up for bad work. Okay, so those two verses I think are going to be, if not the main thing, they're going to be significant in how I approach this paper. And interestingly enough, I feel like these two verses work for both the employee and both the assistant manager and his supervisor, the bank manager, because I don't know if they didn't say if the employee was a Christian or not, but they did say that if I'm, if I'm supposed to come at it as a supervisor, because of course we're talking about leadership, how would I respond? I'm saying to you as I make this video that if you are the employee, this verse can be received to the employee mindset. It can also be used from the supervisor capacity, because there's always somebody above us. And if we are the ultimate head of a company, like I am the owner of my company, and sometimes it feels like I have no boss. I have a boss. My boss is God. And there are times, guys, I'll tell you that when I'm sitting down to really think about or make plans, I'll actually set an empty chair, and in my mind I'll say, I know God is always present with me, but I'll set an empty chair as if I'm making that accountability to God, and acknowledging his presence in the room, and acknowledging that he is the one that I am working for. So even though I own my own business and there are two people along with me, I still have to think that way. So coming at this from this case study, I'm just going to say just some thoughts that I'm thinking. Please, again, feel free to chime in. Leave your comments in the bottom. Tell me if you're commenting as from the employee perspective or from a supervisory perspective. So a couple things came out to me. Initially, when this gentleman applied for the job, he was told straight up his supervisor did not think he was ready. She did not think he had what it took to lose a job. She didn't think so. For lack of finding an ideal candidate, he was the next best choice. That's how he ended up in the job. Now, he was excellent at the job he did do, and he was excellent as a customer service person working directly with the bank clients. But now he was being asked to be in a different role. Listen to me, guys. This is very important. This is very important. I've had many business coaches in my time. And the reason for this is we do need new coaches. And if you don't have a coach, I want to encourage you to get one. Here's why. If you have a little kid that's on a little league team, pretty much anybody can coach that. Then they get to high school. The high school football coach, for example, is going to be of a different caliber. Okay? And that high school football coach wants that kid to potentially get into a college division and get a scholarship. So that's a different level coach, and he asks more of that student. He teaches them different things, pushes them at a different level. Then when they get to college, let's say they make the college team, they're going to have a college level coach, and that coach is of a completely different caliber and expects different things. But if they go pro, they have a whole nother level again. Why am I saying this? This gentleman in this case study was great at the level he was at, but now he's asking for a higher role. And a lot of times employees want the higher role, the bigger pay, the next rank up, without doing any work on themselves to get themselves ready for the requirements and the demands of that next level. You get a new paycheck not just because you've hung around long enough. In fact, my son is a manager at McDonald's, or he'll soon be leaving that job. But one of the things that I realized with McDonald's is, even though it tends to be an entry-level job for a lot of people, it can pay 6 figures depending on the level you're at. But they don't just give out a pay raise just because you've hung around there long enough. You may get the inflationary raise that everybody gets, but you get a pay raise when you accept a higher rank and role, that you get a bigger paycheck. It comes with it, but also with that new paycheck and new title comes new job responsibilities. And so what I'm saying is, this gentleman in this case wanted the new job. He asked for it. He raised his hand and said, I want the new job. But he had not, there's nothing in the case study to suggest he had done any work of any kind to prepare himself for the next new role. Just the fact that you are excellent at what you can do doesn't mean that that has prepared you adequately for the next thing. It does not. Now, the challenge is that his supervisor knew this, and she said that from the beginning, that she did not think he was ready. That was a big clue to me right there, because if she didn't think he was ready, there's nothing in here that says she did anything to help him get ready. And this is a fault of a lot of corporations. I believe there should be a focus on employee development. There should be employee development programs. They should be grooming the next level of leadership long before that leadership level is required. This gentleman had already been at the company for 10 years, and nowhere in that 10 years had they given him an opportunity to learn the next role. But they knew they were going to need people at every single level of the organization. And what are they doing? They're looking to hire from outside. I think the best employee is the one that has already learned the culture of the organization, the one that has already been there. And I think a company, they should invest in their employees. They should invest in their employees. They should have employee grooming programs to get those people up to the next level. And the best plan is to hire from within. Hire from within instead of bringing in outsiders, because when you hire from within, those people have already invested in the company. They already know the company culture. They're already there. To me, they are the best ones. But here it is, this gentleman's been at this company for 10 years. He did his customer service job excellently. He was never groomed. Here's an opportunity. They're looking to hire from outside, not from within. When they're left with no one else, they take the guy and give him the job, knowing from jump that he did not have what it takes. And they just simply asked him to rise to the level. Now, let's pause on that note a little bit. They asked him to rise to the level, and she gave him some directives as the areas that she wanted him to improve in. Guys, some of us really have to, if the organizations that we work for are not investing in employee development programs, sometimes we have to look for it ourselves. Because if you want to go to the next level, that's why some people go to school or take some kind of course, or whatever. Sometimes you have to go and acquire that skill externally, and then let your company know that you now have acquired that skill. It could be that you learn a new language. It could be that you learn a new software. It could be whatever. But you've gone and gotten coaching, whatever the case may be. So sometimes you need to go get that skill yourself. But the point is, they knew he wasn't ready. The organization knew he wasn't ready. They gave him the job and just said, figure it out. Figure it out. That's where I think the supervisor had her first big fall. Now the gentleman, the thing that I find interesting in this case study is that when she spoke to him about what she was expecting from him and what she wanted him to improve in, it says the very first month, very first 6 months, he actually did a decent job. He did a decent job. So he had the capacity for this level of performance. He had the capacity. Capacity is an important word, guys. I love this word capacity. Write it down, make it bold. Capacity is your ability to rise to something. If you're a baby, let's say this is you're a baby and you only have this much cup, you only have that much capability. You cannot do, nobody expects a baby to do taxes. Nobody expects a baby to run a marathon. You don't have the capacity. for you to move on, you have to grow in your capacity. That's why we have to transplant pots to bigger and bigger pots, because if we don't, that plant will die. Pretty much like a lot of employees in their jobs. They're growing as a person. They're probably getting training or something externally that they've gone, or even if the company does it, but they don't give them an opportunity to grow into the new job. And they'll stay in that pot and be trying to grow, and then they'll die because their roots aren't having any ability to expand. So that's the other thing. Employee development, personal development needs to happen for him to have the capacity, the organization to have the employee with the capacity. But it's just interesting to me that for 6 months, he was able to do the job. And in fact, one of the challenges that the reason why he was eventually terminated was his cycle of doing well and then not doing well, and then doing well and then not doing well, and then doing well and then not doing well. That inconsistency speaks to the employee directly. The inconsistency speaks to the employee. But a lot of us in our normal human tendencies are not consistent at anything. I just admitted to you starting this video that I haven't been consistently making videos for a while, and that is a problem, because consistency is important. When you show up consistently, people can bank on you. They know you're going to do something. They begin to trust you. Consistency builds trust. This gentleman, part of the reason why I was terminated was his inconsistent performance. 6 months doing well, 6 months not doing well. 6 months, they speak to him, he picks up, he improves, then he falls back down again. Now, while I am going to put a lot of that on the employee, because clearly he had the ability, but clearly he was slacking off whenever he felt he could. But then that goes back to management. Why could he slack off and get away with it for so long? Why? Where's the accountability? There should be checks and balances in every situation. And here again, I'm speaking to business owners, entrepreneurs. When you work for yourself and you are the boss and there's nobody you answer to, you're going to slack off, because that's what we do as humans. We slack off. So I'm going to encourage you to find that accountability partner. If you don't have someone in your company, like your spouse or something that cares about, the progress of the business, that you actually did what you needed to do to move the business to the next level, then find a coach or find another partner in another company. I'm a part of so many organizations. I'm just now part of this NASDAQ group for women, and I have a business coach. I always have a business coach. I have great friends that are also business partners, and I used to run a mastermind, because we as bosses, as business owners, we don't have necessarily another human who's checking up on us. But if you do not have that accountability, that checks and balances that make sure you are progressing and you're doing what you need to do, and if you fall short, something triggers and catches you, so you get picked back up, and you don't lose the momentum, and you don't lose your consistency in good work. And that is one of the reasons why I also have checklists and their goals, and then if you can see my whiteboard here, one of my whiteboards, and I keep these things in front of my face so I can keep moving. So this case study is very relevant to the workplace. It's looking at us as employees, how we're showing up to work. It's looking at the supervisor. Was the supervisor really being a good boss? I think the supervisor missed the mark in many areas as well. So this verse, again, I'm going to read one more time. And now I'm going to read it back from the ESV version. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. Guys, honestly, if you think, I tell this to my son. Like I said, he's a manager at McDonald's. And I tell him, he talks about his boss all the time. I said, but I tell him he's not, that might be your supervisor, but ultimately you're working for God. So if you keep your eye on that fact, it will change how you show up in the workplace. So again, Colossians 3:23 to 25, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you'll receive the inheritance as a reward. That's kind of important too, because sometimes we don't get the attaboys and the kudos and the good job, you know, from our supervisors. But if you know you have done your best and you know you are working hard, you know God has seen you, you know you will get that reward. It's not good enough. I really think there should be some earthly rewards from your job, from your supervisor. I really think they should acknowledge you. But if they don't, because, you know, they're just not that nice, then at least you know you're going to get it from God. And it says you are serving the Lord Christ. For the wrongdoer will be paid back for the wrong he has done, and there is no partiality. Those who have been entrusted with much are expected much. You know, my business is Profitable Stewardship Inc. Listen, when you are entrusted with much, much is expected of you. And when you become a supervisor, a manager, you have employees underneath you. That is an entrusting position. You are entrusted with how they show up, how they perform, the numerics, the milestones for your department. And the moment this gentleman received that new position, he was entrusted with more. More was expected of him. But his supervisor, even so much more. And, you know, that's where the phrase comes from, the buck stops here. Because there is somebody who ultimately will have to answer for their department, for their business, for the results that are at hand. So these are some of the thoughts I'm going to be putting into my paper. Again, I invite you to contribute to this conversation. And I really do appreciate any of you who have listened live and listened later to here. And I am going to really make an effort to be more consistent with doing a video on Friday, Financial Friday. And if I don't, somebody call me out on that. I really would appreciate it. It's real, guys. The challenge is real. All right. You all have a great weekend.